Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NanaPod. So, we are actually at the end of this volume, volume 16, and we are going into Junko's place, 7F Snack Bar in the bonus pages. And our wall of fan art has returned here, and it's Shin, and he's in his little waiter outfit, and he says, "Hey Junko, I hate to say it, but we got another correction here. Kei from Niigata told us." And Junko says, "I don't want to hear it." And Shin says, "All right then." And Yasu says, "No, it's not all right, especially when they bothered to write in." So he takes the letter and he reads it, and it says, "Hello, I always love reading Nana." Why, thank you. "But there was something that caught my eye when I was reading volume 15. And then Junko turns around and she says, "Oh, I know. Ms. Zuzu's family register on page 162, where it says new family register created. Creative should have been edited instead. It's just your usual typo. The editor freaked and said he'd correct it in the second edition, so don't worry. They had a hard time investigating family registers." And Shin says, What? People actually read panels that full of kanji? I figured people just skip over that." And Yasu goes on to say, "Also," and Junko's freaking out. She says, "What? There's more? Enough already!" But he goes on to read, "Beneath the parent's name, it says daughter, but if she was born when the parents were married, it should be first daughter." And Junko's got like the lines over her face and the dots. And she's thinking, and why is Kei such a know-it-all? And Yasu goes on to say, "My day job is working with family registers, correcting errors, so I couldn't overlook this and wrote y'all a letter. Sorry." And there's a little notation at the bottom that says, "Thanks to Kei's diligence, it is corrected in the English version." But Junko has a sweat bead and says, "Oh, in charge of family registers. Why would upright citizens like that want to read manga where the characters are all total yahoos? Are they bored with their lives?" And Shin says, "The mangaka's the one who messed up, so you don't have to apologize. You're too nice, Kei. Next time you're bored, call me instead of reading manga." And now Yasu's got the little blush lines and a sweat bead and says, "Sorry, you're totally right. So we'll make sure to correct it in the next edition. Thanks." And Junko says, "Then let's go to Jackson before any other serious errors come out. Heart." And Shin says, "Yay, heart." And Yasu says, "What? That's it? It's only the third page." And Junko says, "We got a special side story coming up, and I couldn't care less about Nobu's tales of woe. See ya, heart." And now Yasu is here with a broom like he's cleaning up. And he's saying, "Speaking of Nobu, I wonder what he's up to. And Masato and the Nanas." Sigh. "All right, I guess I'll call George later. Oh well." Yasu, you have a connection to George? Interesting. Even the notation is surprised. It's like, what? Yasu's friends with George. The mysteries of Yasu. And the plot thickens. And then I kind of have to go back here into the bonus pages because I still technically count these as Junko's place because all the crazy stuff is still happening in the back rooms, essentially. And it's Masato, and she's yelling, "Wake up, Captain! We're about to get to Isabella's island." And she's waking up Nobu, who is in a sleeping bag, and there's butterflies over her head going flap, 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 because butterflies are such a thing in Paracas. And he's like, sigh, it was just a dream, bummer. And she says, what was your dream? Honeymoon with Hachiko? And he says, getting lovey-dovey with Yuri, the porn star. She was soft and smelled like candy. Heart. And Masato does not like this, so she hits him over the head with her mallet. Her stone mallet. Looks like a caveman's mallet. And then she's like, you're supposed to be a hero. Don't you dare say you had such a sleazy dream. You'll bum out girls all over Japan. And honestly bummed out a whole bunch of people in the comment sections that Melissa and I lost. And he's like, you split my head open. Were you trying to kill me? And now we're on Isabella's island. And it's Isabella. And she's saying, hey, George, did you know there's a cast change in the second Nana movie? And George says, ah, yes, Hachi, Ren, and Shin. As the days pass, people's circumstances change. Maruyama's hair finally grew out, but he'll shave it again, just to play Yasu. And Isabella says, the first movie was so popular, there'll be intense pressure on the actors. I want everyone to cooperate and work hard. Should I send them something good to eat? And George looks up with a tick. And then Isabella looks over, and George says, I smell something good. And Isabella says, the smell of fresh blood. A young male human heart. And George stands up and says, we'll have a feast tonight, and it makes the perfect gift. Isabella says, full of iron, heart. Why are we vampires all of a sudden? Anyway, in the guest room, I think this is Miwako, I think, who is in a little nurse outfit. This is the first time we are seeing her, and she's saying, let me put some medicine on that, heart. Don't move, sweetie, heart. And she's rubbing ointment onto Nobu's cut on his head, and his heart's going pitter-patter. And I think he's staring at her boobs, but they're also kind of just in his face. And then there's a creak of a door, and George has the dots. And Miwako says, oh, George, could you be a gentleman and knock when entering a guest's room? And Nobu looks shocked. And now George, who everyone, remember he's bisexual, he's flirting with Nobu. And he's touched him under the chin, and he's like, pardon me, I thought it was an intruder. Then he must be your guest. Playing doctor. Looks fun. And Nobu just has like a sweat drop. It's like he's so used to this kind of bullshit from like Shin and Ren that he's just kind of not really fazed. And Miwako's just sort of like, he's not my guest. I just saw him wandering around in the mansion, so heart. And then Nobu's just kind of got dots, and he's like, excuse me. And George has dots. And then he says, Miwako, dear, we don't call people like that guests. He could be a dangerous intruder. And because he's like pulled her aside. And she's like, really? What should I do? And Nobu's got all the dots. And he says, well, you found him first, so he's yours. Do what you want with him. And then he slams the door. And then Miwako turns around and she's like, oh, goody, heart. Then I'll pour some chocolate and whipped cream and make a chocolate banana parfait. Super yummy, heart. And he says, Miwako, where are you going to pour that? I told you I came here looking for Nana and Hachi. I'm not some thug. Do you know where they are? And she says, I do. He says, you do? And she goes, but I don't know if I should tell you. And she's whipping up, her little parfait, and it goes whip, whip, whip. And he says, of course you should. I promise I won't tell anyone that you told me. even if someone cracks my head open. But, and she says, you worked so hard to get here. Wouldn't it spoil the fun if I told you? And he says, no, I didn't plan on it being fun. God, you're so cute. And his heart goes stab. There's a little stab through his heart. And then there's bzz, 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 because here's Masato, phone Masato, of course, on her phone, and he's like, Masato, I found out where Nana and Hachi are. And she's like, really? You really are a hero. Then let's go rescue them quick. And he says, but I'm getting ready for some action, so let's save that for the next volume. Actually, just go on without me. And Miwako's like, your bath is ready. And Misato's like, what? And all the way over in Quarter Moon House, Hachi has woken up and she's like, hey Nana, we worked so hard to get here. When do we get to meet Adam? And Nana says, I thought you wanted to meet George. And it's like Hachi's forgotten because she's got the dots and she's like, did I? And we have the little notation at the bottom that's like, Nana and Nobu are fickle, even in the bonus pages. Why don't they just get it over with and meet each other already? I love that mangaka, our lovely Eiyazawa, she even ships Nobu and Hachi together, and yet, Nobu is distracted by pretty girls. And also, Miwako has a terrible fucking boyfriend, so it makes sense that Nobu would be into her. And Nana wants to meet George, and of course she wants to meet Adam. She wants to meet all of them. She's a fan like that. And that's actually it for the bonus pages. But I do have to kind of say that in the back here, because there's like these, the Family Times and, the little magazine that they had, there's a picture back in here that's promoting the second Nana movie, and it's Ren and Hachi, and they look like they're part of a Yakuza gang. And I don't know why, but I think that it's very cute. Anyway, guys, that is all for this little section. We will be returning for the bonus story that is all about Nobu. And don't you know, I totally forgot that Nobu had his own pages. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you all in the next one. Good night.